What's going on, guys? Welcome into another video, and today we're talking about the Perseus versus the Hammerhead. And this is not a direct comparison of a ship's head-to-head, because I think anyone with more than 2 brain cells would understand that the Perseus was going to dog walk a Hammerhead every single time. It's probably not even going to be a close fight. So this is not a comparison between that. This is a comparison and how effective they can be at their actual roles. Meaning these two are meant to be support ships for a larger fleet, but what ship with the current flight tuning would be better at its role? And this is what we're going to be talking about here today. So to begin with, we're going to talk about the Hammerhead and what the Hammerhead's role is supposed to be. The Hammerhead is supposed to be an aerial denial ship, meaning this ship sets up a zone, and any fighter that comes into the zone of this ship is supposed to be shot down. Now, currently in the game, if you have a good enough pilot, you can kind of make the ship somewhat effective. In fact, I think currently, even though the Hammerhead is complete trash right now, it's probably the most effective multi-crew ship. Meaning it's one of the few multi-crew ships in the game that when used correctly, it actually has a chance to fight. Now, I will say this. The Hammerhead does have glaring weaknesses, okay? One of the weaknesses is it doesn't have enough flares. There's just not enough flares on the Hammerhead for it to survive a missile attack from something like a Firebird. A solo Firebird will wreck shop on this Hammerhead all day long, because if the missiles hit back here, anywhere where the power plant is, the splice damage goes through, and it literally kills the power plant, making the ship dead in the sea or in space. I was going to say dead in the water, but there's no water in space, right? So it just makes it dead in space and leaving the ship useless. Now, I know people are going to get in the comments and talk about when armor comes in, when we get Maelstrom. Man, all that stuff has been delayed, and we have no idea when we're actually going to be getting it. So therefore, you know, I don't even know, like, if any of that stuff will be in the game when this ship comes out. I don't know if we'll have engineering by then. We'll see, though. We'll see. The new changes and the new updates have made multi-crewing for Pyro and the second star system very interesting because of having no engineering. And even if you did have engineering, guys, with the way the game is currently set up, like, you're not going to have a chance to put out any fires, or you're not going to have a chance to go and try to save your components on your ship, because the light fighters, they're just going to kill you. So I think the engineering gameplay may work for a scenario like in Squadron 42, but making it work well in a multi-crew environment where you have players that don't have set behavioral patterns, I think it's going to be very, very difficult. So at least for now, I'm kind of glad they're delaying it. They're not rushing it out, because I do think that they need to understand how players actually play the game and not how they think players will actually play the game. So what can we do to the Hammerhead to make it more effective? I do think the Hammerhead deserves a little PDS back here somewhere so it can shoot down missiles. You know, it would be good for a ship like this to have that. So one little single size 1 PDS, or even if they can make it like a ballistic PDS, like a Gatlin. So it has to, replenish ammo, but a laser cannon or a laser repeater or a laser Gatlin would probably be a good idea for a ship like this. I also think that with the Hammerhead, if we can maybe upgrade these guns on the top to like some size 5s or something like that, I think it'll make the ship even more effective. Yeah, and I think it'd be good as an aerial denial ship. It'll be better, but like I said, the real issue that we have with the game is not the ships themselves. It's how the weapons work with the ships and the relationship in the combat. So, and again, guys, understand this. A light fighter, like, let me bring a light fighter out here, because you guys need representation. And I love using my F7A Mark II Hornet. And a gang of these, right? A gang of these, a gang of a gang of buccaneers. Let me go to Drake. A gang of buccaneers can outrange both of these ships, and that shouldn't be the case. The only ships that should be having any range on any big, multi-crew ship is the Ion and the Inferno, because that's what they're designed to do. They have the weaponry and the power to do it. These are the only ships that should have any type of chance going up against either one of these ships. And even then, for those ships, it should still be pretty difficult. But these are the two fighters that are designed to fight these bigger ships. So with the current tuning, with the way the game is currently set up, I do believe that the Hammerhead is not good at its role. Okay, but let's have a discussion about the Perseus. Now, the Perseus is, an anti-capital ship fighter. It's what it's designed to do. It's designed to be deployed with a larger fleet. And like the Hammerhead, it's not supposed to be just be one of them. They're supposed to deploy in a group. There's supposed to be multiple of these ships in any given situation. So if you have multiple Perseus, I was about to say Polaris. If you have multiple Perseuses, Persei, Perseus, like this, plural words are hard. But yeah, if you have multiple of these ships, it'll usually work out pretty well in your favor. The only time that it's not going to work out is if they have a fighter squadron, and a fighters, will probably be very dangerous for this. But let's talk about something else with the Perseus. So we saw the Perseus right here at CitizenCon, and I was like, man, I feel like I've seen an image very similar to this before. And the thing that struck me very oddly was when I looked at it, I saw the big size 7 turret here, but when I looked down here, I didn't see any turret. And I'm thinking to myself, I've seen an image like this before, with the cargo grid down, in the bottom turret not being shown. So I'm going to show you guys where else an image like this exists. And it's this image right here. It's literally almost the exact same image. The angle's a little bit different. There's no Ursa rover, but it's literally almost the exact same image. And I know a lot of people were probably wondering, why we didn't see this this turret on the bottom of the ship. And I do believe that bottom turret will deploy out of the bottom of the ship. It will not always be available. I think the only turret that will be available, exposed all the time, is this top one. The bottom one will probably, like I said, come out of the bottom of the ship here to deploy. And it just kind of makes sense, because if you look how the ship is designed, its landing gear makes the bottom of the ship very low to the ground. And I do believe that this is the correct landing gear that we see, because we kind of see it here. It's let me get it back to full screen so you guys can see better. We see it here, right? It's almost like the same kind of landing gear, and we see the ship's going to have this lower profile to the ground, which I think is good, but it's also not good if you have your turret out. So when you get this ship, when we start flying it, you'll have to make sure that turret is stowed away in the bottom of the ship, which I think is a good design. I would have much preferred that other turret to be up here on the nose. I just think it will make the ship look a lot cleaner look, but that's what CIG is going to do, and we know they're probably going to do it because the Zeus also has a turret that's 3/4 of the way back on the ship. So they like the design. That's the design they're going to go with. And I do believe the torpedoes are going to come out of here in the front. They're going to shoot out of the front of the ship. Now, the reason I like the Perseus so much is because it looks like a naval destroyer, right? It has that classic naval design. And I'm actually quite surprised that not many ships have a design like this, like that classic, boat design. And I think it's a great design for a multi-crew ship. I do have something though like if you ever seen like a naval destroyer or anything like that, if you ever seen one of those shoot their cruise missiles, the missiles come out of the top. Well, they don't come out the top. Well, they're vertically launched. And I thought it would have been cool for the Perseus to kind of have a vertical launcher for its torpedoes, but then the ship would have to be a lot taller, because I think the size 5 torpedoes are actually pretty big. Well, I don't think they're that big. They're not as big as the size 9s, but they're pretty big. So the ship would have to get a lot bigger. So that's not, that's just me just being a sailor, my prior naval experience. Like, seeing that would be cool. Like if you had a Perseus like roll up, and then you have to shoot your torpedoes at somebody, and then they all just vertically launched here out of the back of the ship, or they vertically launched here, right behind the turret. I think that would have been like very, very cool. But you got to have some functionality, right? And have them shoot out of the front here just makes a lot more sense, especially in a space, because there's no water. You can have them shoot in any direction. They can shoot from the bottom and go out. They can shoot from any direction. It doesn't really matter. But that was just me being just talking about wishful thinking for an old sailor here. But let's talk about how effective it would be at its role. Now, I think at its role, I think that the Perseus is better at its role, because it can actually do its role in fighting and destroying capital ships in a group setting. I don't think one of these should be able to go one-on-one and solo a big ship. I don't think it should have enough ammo to do that, and I don't think it should have enough firepower to do that. But you never know with this game. Like, it's like the old Forrest Gump saying, like, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get with Star Citizen. It's really like that. And who knows? The Perseus may come out and it may just steamroll in Idris, but I hope it doesn't, and I don't think that it should. But I do think in a group setting that it will be much more effective at its role, because it can actually apply the damage to where it needs to be applied to, and not have to worry about well, it still has to worry about fighters, right? Fighters are always going to be a problem, and fighters will always reign supreme until Star Citizen, or CIG rather, fixes the relationship. But if we're taking light fighters out of the equation, and we're just talking about it going up against, other capital ships, I think it'll be pretty good at its role. I think it'll be a fan favorite. And the other thing that I think with the Perseus is the crew requirement. Like, for a Hammerhead, you need so many people to make this thing effective. With the Perseus, you really only need 3. Maybe one more if you want to have a dedicated engineer. Right? So you got 1 in this turret, you got 1 in this turret, and you got your pilot and 1 engineer, and you basically have a fully functioning ship. You could bring another person for this turret back here, and maybe that could be your engineer's turret. And then like when something happens with engineering, but we're not even getting engineering like anytime soon. So like it doesn't even really matter, right? And that's kind of like the point of like what I'm saying. So like even now, since you don't need an engineer, I think that this ship would be much more effective in going up against these capital ships. And even like having a guy up here in this turret, even if you have something like a Polaris that you have to go after, I think this should be a little bit faster than the Polaris. I think this should be able to run and hunt down capital ships. I think that would be a good thing for it to do. It could be like a big interceptor, right? I don't think it should interdict, but I think it should be like a big interceptor, to where it's designed to be like a little bit faster, have a little bit more acceleration, a little bit more top speed than your capital ships, so it can really stick to them and not let them like get away. But we'll see. Everything is just so slow right now, and if we're thinking about getting the Perseus, and here's what I'm gonna say. Because of the Perseus and the Polaris share so many assets, I do think this ship is not going to come out. I don't think it's going to take an entire year for the ship to come out. I do think, and you can bookmark it here, and if I'm wrong, that's okay too, because this is just theory crafting, right? Now, I do think this ship will probably either be on the showroom floor as a model for us to see during Invictus, or it'll be fully complete and ready to go for Invictus. And I hope it's ready to go for Invictus, because it's a ship that I wanted to fly the most. Like, other than the A2, which, you know, again, they massacred my boy.
Look how they massacred my boy.
I think this was my other favorite multi-crew ship, and it's mostly because of the crew requirement. And I just hope that, you know, one day that Star Citizen can, or CIG rather, can put multi-crew into a place where it's actually fun to use, and you don't have to worry about getting swarmed and killed by a pack of light fighters. That's not, you know, it's just not going to make the game great, but as long as the light fighter meta exists in Star Citizen, like, I'm going to use it because it's what works, you know. But I do have, you know, thoughts of maybe one day, not getting my hopes up, by the way. This is not a hopeful kind of video, but I do hope one day eventually that they get the right people to figure out multi-crew, and we can put it in a good place. And both of these ships can be more effective at their roles. But as things currently stand, guys, the RSI Perseus is better at its role, even though it's not in the game, and even though this is theory crafting. But if we just look at how the game is currently designed, this is going to be a clear dub for the Perseus. And as always, guys, let's have a conversation down in the comments about it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.